Hey again, guys, we're back with a rather spontaneous review because we feel like it, and no, I'm afraid it is not Aliens vs. Predator, even though we did say we would do that, but instead, we really got something good for you this time. It is
Back to the Future.
This movie is
awesome!
Unbelievable. I mean, this has to be one of the best movies of all time, and is one of my all-time favorites.
A classic 1980s comedy sci-fi film.
Yeah, it has a lot of genres in it, but it definitely feels like an adventure. It has science fiction elements. It is a comedy.
It's family-oriented.
Yeah, this movie sort of appeals to everybody. I can't think of anyone who would dislike this movie, to be perfectly honest. But anyway, so what is a big fuss about it? Back to the Future deals with just that, time travel. We all know time travel. I mean, everybody who has seen Star Trek and any other science fiction show is familiar with how it works. But this movie really nailed it down. How time travel works, what consequences it can have when you do something you're not supposed to do when you time travel.
And how you solve those consequences too, it appears.
So, director Robert Zemeckis, a guy who I really gotta give some credit. He did great movies, and this has to be the best one I've seen of him. I have a few other favorites, but it's gotta be it.
His best line of movies. I mean, this movie came with 2 sequels. It had to.
Yeah, this movie had sequels, but unlike with many, especially with horror movies, whose sequels never really, hardly ever lived up to the original, these sequels not only were very welcome, but they also perfectly make sense.
They tied the first movie together and create a rather than just 3 different types of movies of the same story, they're all in the same story.
Yeah, they are real sequels. They take place right after the previous movie ends, and that makes it so good. It's almost like watching a TV series, only that TV show has high quality, and it runs to almost 2 hours.
Not to mention some of these greatest actors of all time, like Michael J. Fox, who plays Marty McFly, and Christopher Lloyd, who plays Dr. Emmett Brown.
These two, I love these guys. They're awesome. I mean, they are great actors as it is, but in my opinion, those two together, awesome screen. What's the word?
Screen time.
There's a word for that. Chemistry. They have the right chemistry.
Yes.
These guys really work together excellently.
You have the old, wacky, scientific Dr. Emmett Brown versus the young, adventurous, courageous Marty McFly. And, yeah, they both bounce off each other. It's epic.
Yeah. So what's the plot of the original movie? Okay. The basic plot is Dr. Emmett Brown, who's played by Christopher Lloyd, invents a time machine.
Out of a DeLorean.
Out of a DeLorean. Possibly turning this car into, I think it raised its popularity a little bit. So he invents a time machine, and he wants to show it off to our friend Marty, who,
he's like good friends with a dog, basically. Yeah,
even though a lot of people, including his school's principal, tell him that he's dangerous and crazy. Well, he's crazy, I admit that, but in a good way. It's like, he's crazy, but you still find him sympathetic. I mean, I would love to know a guy like this.
I would love to have a friend like that.
Hell yeah.
It's so much fun.
So basically, he shows off a time machine, but unfortunately there's one problem. That time machine runs on plutonium, which is not exactly easy to get, even today, despite what Doc Brown thinks. So, what happens? He stole the plutonium from terrorists. Now, you don't screw up terrorists.
Never.
Not even a comedy movie.
Nope.
So, what happens? They come back for revenge, because he screwed them over and delivered the wrong materials. What it is, you will hear a movie. It's hilarious. And what happens, he gets shot, Marty tries to get away with a DeLorean, accidentally activates a time machine, and travels back into the year 1955.
The year his parents were supposed to meet and get married at one point. Well, not get married, but meet. It's basically the starting point of him and his family being born, basically.
Exactly. It goes back to when his parents didn't know each other, but it was shortly before they actually meet each other. That very fateful day, and well, Marty ends up in the past, and I like one thing about the Back to the Future trilogy. Everything a character does has consequences. Every tiny little detail. Like, I mean, there's the place where Doc Brown showed the DeLorean was called the Twin Pines Mall. When Marty goes back to the future, as you see, when you go to Back to the Future, you go back in time, but you really end up at the exact same spot as you were. So he knocks over a tree, and instead there's only one pine left, so it changes, and later on it's a Lone Pine Mall. I find tiny little details like that.
I didn't notice that!
You didn't?
No!
It's stuff like this that you discover if you watch a movie over and over and over again. It rewards you for paying attention. It really does it.
It have a lot of hidden Easter eggs, and yeah, I couldn't help but notice I keep spotting different ones every time I watch it.
It's really great. It's one of those movies that gets better every time I watch it. So he's back in time. The story is his parents got together because his dad almost got killed in a car incident because his grandpa almost roadkilled him. Now what happens, he sees his dad about to be hit by a car, saves his life, but instead he's the guy that gets hit by the car. So you know what happens? His mom, that is not his mom yet, well, falls in love with him instead. So
oh, the awkwardness of that situation.
It is incredibly awkward, but also funny. And now the only help that Marty can think of is Doc Brown, the one that is living in 1955, who of course has not invented the time machine yet. So he has to convince Doc Brown that he is who he is and that he's from the future. But he also has to get his parents together. Now this leads to some really funny scenes, and of course, every good movie has some sort of villain too, and we have one jerk in this one.
Yeah, as you openly mentioned that when it comes to time traveling, future or past, there are always consequences. Well, true to that, the environment is a huge hurdle, or a big confrontation or an issue throughout the movie. But yeah, you can't have the movie without a villain. And that is Biff Tannen, played by Thomas F. Wilson.
You got my homework finished, McFly?
Well, actually, I figured since it wasn't due till Monday.
Hello? Hello? Anybody home? Hey, think, McFly, think.
Probably one of the biggest bullies I have seen in my time when I was watching these movies.
Now, I don't know about the actor, but he plays this bully so believable, you would think he was such an asshole in school. Not meaning to insult him, but god damn, he does a good job.
He's tall, he's big, he's
mean.
He's not exactly the smartest bully on earth, but you wouldn't want to run into him if you're a small person like Marty.
Heck no. So
he was an asshole during his time, he's an asshole during his parents' time.
Your insurance is going to pay for the damage?
My insurance? It's your car. Your insurance should pay for it. I want to know who's going to pay for this. I spilled beer all over when that car smashed into me. Who's going to pay my cleaning bill? And where's my reports?
Well, I haven't finished those up yet, but, I figured since they weren't due till...
Hello? Hello? Anybody home? Think, McFly. Think.
So Biff basically gives everybody a hard time here, including Marty's dad. And, well, in order to get his mom, he instead has to stand up against Biff. For once. And this is something that actually I find that was a very cool plot device, or a very cool plot line in my opinion.
What, that Marty stands up to Biff rather than George McFly standing up?
No, but George has to do that.
Oh, yeah, see...
Who always got pushed around, and yeah.
Yeah, from the very beginning of the movie, at the beginning, you see Marty's parents. His mom is not exactly great looking, and his dad looks really geeky.
Hey, see you later, Pop. Woo! Come on, time to change that oil.
Hey, Marty.
He's a real wuss, and you can tell by that through his interactions with the present Biff Tannen. But now that you're in the past, you can see that George is still, in fact, a wuss.
Yeah, unfortunately. So, yeah, that is basically the plot. Marty has to get his parents together, and he has to find a way to get back to 1985.
With the help of the current Dr. Emmett Brown.
Exactly. Of course, as you can imagine, this sounds like a really complicated movie, but trust me, the movie takes its time, and it's really, really watchable. I did say that the more attention you pay to while watching this, the more you're gonna spot, but don't expect to see everything on your first watch. This is a movie you wanna come back to again, and again. You will love it every single time. You're probably gonna like it even more than the last time. You never know. I just know that, in my opinion, if I were to choose the perfect movie, someone would come up to me and ask, hey dude, what is a perfect movie? Do you know a movie that has no flaws whatsoever for what it was meant to be? I say, Back to the Future. In a heartbeat. This has to be it. And I usually don't say this lightly, because I like to nitpick stuff. But the Back to the Future trilogy has no flaws. Not even with the tiniest ones. They put so much attention to detail and so much passion into making this trilogy, and especially this first movie, that I gotta say, this is the perfect movie. It is a straight 10 out of 10 for me. One of my absolute favorites.
I highly agree, a 10 out of 10 for me. But before we go on here, I just want to also add something else. This movie was made in 1985. Present day, the great, honorable Michael J. Fox, I'm not sure how old he is now, but I do know he is no longer acting anymore.
50. He's 50 years old.
He's 50 years old. The reason why he's really no longer acting anymore is because he has dedicated his life to finding a cure for Parkinson's disease, which unfortunately he has been diagnosed with. All I can say about that is, guys, is that if you hear about donations or support to finding the cure for Parkinson's, have at it and help out, because I can't think of any noble thing to do with your life than to find a cure for such a really lethal disease.
Yeah.
I salute to Michael J. Fox for that.
So not only is he's got to be one of my favorite actors of all time, but he is also one that is also a good person in general, not just on screen.
Yeah.
That is really something that needs to be said about him, and I can only honor that.
Mm-hmm.
He's a great person. Of course, the second main character of the movie, Dr. Emmett Brown, played by Christopher Lloyd, who I mean, the first time I saw Christopher Lloyd was in Star Trek 3. He played the Klingon villain of that movie. Now, these roles are so different that if I see Star Trek 3 and I see that guy, I know it is Christopher Lloyd, but it is so weird that I gotta give him credit that he can play completely different roles and you couldn't even tell it is him. It is so crazy. I mean, here you have Doc Brown, this crazy scientist that invents so much stuff that he is just, he's almost hyperactive for his age. And on the other hand, you have this cruel Klingon villain that kills people completely honorless. This guy makes both of them look believable. I really like this actor.
He's a great actor. I can't deny that.
So, yeah, this movie's great. And so are its sequels. So if you ever got a chance, a remote chance to see this movie and its sequels, go for it.
Check them out.
There is absolutely no way you're gonna regret it. That's what I'm thinking. And really, trust me, guys. When I say this is a perfect movie, I mean it. And even IMDb thinks that. Even though IMDb tends to disagree with even our opinions, in this case, I think it agrees, because it has an average rating of 8.5. Now, for IMDb standards, that is pretty damn high. It is in the top 500 right now, and I hope it will stay there, because, man, it deserves it.
Mm-hmm. Amen to that.
So this is one of these movies that everybody should have seen in their life, and that should never be forgotten, because it is simply a cinematic masterpiece.
Amen to that. So,
check it out, guys, and maybe we'll see us again in the future.
Or in the past.
Whatever. So, yeah. I think eventually we're gonna review the other Back to the Future movies as well.
Why not?
But as for this one, perfect, 10 out of 10 for me.
Same.
So there you have it, guys. See you next time.
Adios.
Calculations are correct. When this baby hits 88 miles per hour, you're gonna see some serious shit.